The Blast from Our Past Network.
Podcasting After Dark presents TV Obscura, a deep dive into underrated and unknown television shows from our youth. Cartoons, sitcoms, cop shows, and much more. Sit back and enjoy some nostalgic fun with TV Obscura.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcasting After Dark presents TV Obscura. I am 1/3 of the TV Obscura team, Corey, a.k.a. Sleazy C. Joined with me, as always, are my two brothers from other mothers, Zach, the Total Snackhead Schaefer, and Diallo, the Armageddon Jackson. And do you feel it in the air? Can you feel the warmth inside your heart? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. This is our annual TV Obscura Christmas episode. 2023, and boy oh boy do we have some fun ones for you guys this time. Woo woo,
Rock, jingle bells, rock.
fucking Polly. Fuck you, Polly.
Bah humbug, Polly.
All right, this month we have 3 fun Christmas-themed shows. We are going to be tackling the story of the faithful Wookiee, a.k.a. Boba Fett's first animated appearance in the Star Wars Holiday Special. Then we're going to be going up, that's 1978. Then we're going to be going Cobra Claws Are Coming to Town from G.I. Joe, 1985, Season 1, Episode 39. And finally, we are going to be discussing Have Yourself a Morlock Little Christmas, 1995, X-Men, Season 4, either Episode 12 or Episode 17, depending on if you're watching this on Disney Plus or if you're looking at it on IMDb. We're not quite sure what the discrepancy on the numbering is, but it's there. It's there, and it can be found. But guys, I know that we're recording this before it happens, but I'm going to be seeing the two of you in December, in the first weekend of December at LA Comic-Con. So by the time everyone listens to this, we have already done our LA Comic-Con thing, and we hope everyone had a chance to come out and check it out. But since we're recording it before it happens, I have no idea how it went, and I'm very excited for it to come up in a couple weeks.
It was amazing.
It was amazing.
So good. It was so good. I loved the way that you talked up there.
You love the way that I did what I did.
Yeah,
We
was
held
so,
that mic.
Yeah, it was so strong.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for backing me up and yes-anding this bit into oblivion.
Well, when you pulled out your molecular reducer and larger ray and used it on the audience, that was amazing.
Yeah.
My rebiginator.
Yeah, and then I think Jonathan from, Geekscape, he was like, "We've been snookered. Corey came in here and snookered us." He snookered everybody at LA Comic-Con.
Damn right. So, Zach and Diallo, I'm watching these shows. I feel like I'm the one that kind of picked the outlier because G.I. Joe and X-Men, they both had a lot of snow in their episodes, and man, I love that so much. And both of them actually really did get me into the holiday spirit, and obviously we'll dig into it in a little bit, but do either of you guys have like any movies that you watch every year? Like just a couple, give me a couple that you have to watch every year to get into the holiday spirit. Diallo?
Like the only thing I semi-regularly watch is Love Actually, and ever since my ex broke up with me, I haven't watched it because it hurts too much.
Jaw feel, buddy.
To think about love. But then, the only other thing I actually watched had nothing really to do with Christmas per se, but it was just kind of a tradition. I used to watch, for years, I'd watch the Star Wars original trilogy on Christmas Day, and then that kind of transitioned into watching as much as I could of Lord of the Rings. Usually, I would do one a day for over 3 days, but that's it. Nothing like Christmas, but that's what I kind of do.
Well, I get the watching on Star Wars like on Christmas Day because I feel like didn't like TBS or something used to show that or TNT like all day long. I mean, now it's like it's Christmas Story. Everyone just watches Christmas Story on Christmas Day. But I feel like there used to be Star Wars marathons on cable on Christmas Day back in the day.
There might have been. I started doing it when it was like that first like deluxe VHS set came out. Like I think it might have been the special editions, like around there. I remember I was living in Hawaii actually at the time, and I remember getting that for Christmas, and then that just kind of every year I'd watch them all on Christmas.
The ones that the VH ones that came in either the silver or the gold.
The silver. Yeah, it was the silver, the widescreen ones.
Yeah,
I was very adamant. It had to be the widescreen to my
yeah,
parents.
Dude. Yeah, the silver was the widescreen, the gold was the pan and scan, and I was like, nope, gotta have the silver one.
Yeah.
Zach, do you have any couple movies that are your must watches?
Yeah, Diallo triggered a memory in me. Well, nowadays our tradition is to watch 8-Bit Christmas. I think that movie is so much fun. Absolutely love 8-Bit Christmas. If you listeners have never seen it, you can buy the physical copy on Amazon, but it's on HBO Max. It's such a fun, silly, nostalgic. It's a Christmas story for the 80s generation. It's super fun. I think Diallo, you might have watched it with us one time over at our house.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it, actually.
But then you triggered a memory in me. I got 2 VHS tapes for Christmas one year, and then it became a Christmas tradition for me to watch them on my own in my room. Goodfellas and Aspen Extreme. Those were the two. Every year I would watch Goodfellas and Aspen Extreme on VHS in my bedroom on Christmas Day. I just was like my comfort films. For why those two movies, I don't know, but I feel like I want to renew that tradition.
Nice.
Are you gonna watch Goodfellas with Bodhi?
I am. Like, you're funny. Funny how?
Funny how?
Well, I'm a bit more traditional. Scrooged is my favorite, one of my favorite Christmas movies. But Muppets Christmas Carol is my hands down absolute favorite of all time. Or Marley and Marley, woo. So I have to watch that every Christmas Eve, and then I just usually have A Christmas Story playing in the background and everything. And I like to watch like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles on Thanksgiving and things like that.
I'll throw in too. I forgot we do always watch the He-Man and She-Ra Christmas special every year, and the G.I. Joe one. Not gonna lie, G.I. Joe one.
Well, we covered the He-Man and She-Ra one last year, so if you all are new to the show, new listeners, go check that one out. We covered it as pretty much a standalone episode, and then the year prior for Christmas, we did the Tick Christmas special. The Ghostbusters one that was based on the Christmas Carol, and
Rambo.
That's right, Rambo. So, it's funny because TV Obscura. Yes, G.I. Joe's not really an obscure TV show, nor is X-Men. But there are only so many Christmas episodes out there of things that I feel like we got the obscure ones out of the way with Rambo and the Tick.
Well, we're gonna go back to Davy and Goliath one of these years.
Yeah.
I will choose Davy. Let's talk about Jesus Christ.
Well, there were some like more obscure ones that I thought of, and I think I said to you guys, I was like, yeah, it's Christmas. I don't care. Like let's do like Christmas episodes that we like.
love.
Part of the spirit of the whole deal, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. I'll be dead inside.
You guys ever
for
see?
the rest of the year.
There's a cartoon called Witch's Night Out. It's the Halloween TV show, but then they did like a winter version, which I think is their Christmas one. I'll have to do a little bit of digging on that, and maybe we'll pull that one out of the pile very soon.
The one that traumatized me the most and that I'd never want to bring to TV Obscura is the Garfield Christmas special, the one where he meets his mom, and then by the end of it she has to leave. I watched it when I was like 5 or 6 or 7 or something, and I bawled. I cried my eyes out, and we didn't have this term at the time, but now I would say I ugly cried for that one.
Yeah. I'm okay with not bringing it to the table.
Yeah, me too. Me too. All right, guys.
But Davy and Goliath, let's talk about Jesus Christ.
I've never seen an episode of Davy and Goliath.
You will. You will.
I feel like I only know about this show through the Adult Swim parody show of it. I think
it's coming.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what's coming right now? Boba Fett. Boba Fett. Boba Fett. Where?
Boba Fett. Can I just talk like this through this entire segment?
What the hell is that?
That's Chewbacca's son.
Oh, okay. So Lumpy. It's Lumpy. So you watched. I didn't watch the holiday special, but we'll talk about it. We'll discuss it.
Yeah, let's give it at least 2 minutes of audio time at some point during this.
I'll see if I can find a clip or something and insert it for you. Because I was like, what the hell are you talking about? But okay.
Yeah.
Now I have seen the holiday special in its entirety. It's bad. It's pretty fucking bad. The Story of the Faithful Wookiee. The Story of the Faithful Wookiee is an animated short that aired as part of the Star Wars Holiday Special, which was only broadcast once on November 17, 1978 on CBS.
Wow.
The infamous Holiday Special was directed by Steve Binder and featured Han helping Chewie get home to his planet of Kashyyyk so he could spend Life Day with his family of Wookiees, Itchy, Mala, and Lumpy. How did Lumpy go again, Zach?
I don't know.
In the holiday special, Chewie's son Lumpy is seen watching this cartoon on his video book while waiting for his father to arrive. The Story of the Faithful Wookiee features the first appearance of Boba Fett before the Empire strikes back and sees him befriending Luke on an alien planet and helping him find an antidote for Han, but the twist is he's actually working for Darth Vader. The cartoon was produced by the Canadian animation company Nelvana. They are known for the 1983 animated film Rock and Rule, which they turned down working on Heavy Metal to make, the Mad Balls cartoon, the pilot episode of the Get Along Gang, and the first season of Inspector Gadget in cooperation with Deke. Star Wars fans will also know them as the studio that produced the Droids and Ewoks cartoons. Mark Hamill, Anthony Daniels, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford voiced their characters, but Boba Fett was voiced here and on the episode of Droids by Don Franks, who we know as Chief Newbie in 1981's My Bloody Valentine, which, Zach, I believe we called it out when we were going through his IMDb, stuff and everything on when we were reviewing that one.
I believe you did because you are the world's biggest Boba Fett fan.
Oh, I would have also accepted nerd.
You know how hard it was for me to not start singing the Get Along Gang?
The Get Along Gang. Get Along Gang.
I don't want to interrupt him, but I need to sing it so bad.
It's like welling up inside of you.
Listeners, you did not see this, but Diallo and I both were moving our bodies in unison to the Get Along theme song, and I looked over at Diallo and I'm like, I see what he's doing. We're on the same page.
So
It's the Get Along Gang, Get Along Gang.
So good.
It's funny. I never watched that, but I recognize the song.
That show was based around Hallmark. Hallmark trade. They were like that was Hallmark's card company. They did a whole toy line, cartoon, positive kids, positive role models. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Now, Zach, did you ever watch the Mad Balls cartoon?
I did. I watched the VHS version because I remember it showing up at the video store, and I love Mad Balls. And I totally forgot the Mad Balls cartoon, so we're going to have to bring that to TV Obscura.
Yeah. Note to Corey, the editor, when you're going through this, add the Mad Balls cartoon to our infinite list of TV Obscura shows. That's kind of all the write-up I have for this because, guys and gals, if you've never seen it, first off, this standalone cartoon is on Disney Plus as The Faithful Wookiee, so you can find it there. It is 9 minutes long, so there's not too much meat on the bones to sort of talk about, but I think it's pretty fucking cool. Besides the whole Boba Fett thing, but with the animation and everything, I think is amazing. But real quick, Diallo, what's your experience with the holiday special in general? Did either of you guys remember watching that when it actually aired?
I did. I probably was about 7 or 8 around that time.
Was there a build up to it? Like, were you excited for it?
It's actually, I can't remember, like, I just sort of, I remember I was at my grandmother's house and I watched it there. And I remember sitting on her bed, in her bedroom, and watching it.
And thinking, this isn't Star Wars.
Because I always remember, like, the cartoon part and, like, seeing Boba Fett. And that was actually kind of like, the rest of it was like I don't know, it was like a variety show kind of.
Very much, yes, like a variety show.
And I've not seen it since then, really. Like, I've seen clips and stuff, like,
Since
over the years.
1978.
Because, like, for years it wasn't even, like, available. But, whatever. But I remember watching it, and, like, a lot of the excitement out of that was, like, this Boba Fett character. And then around that time, you could send away for, like, with the little points or whatever in the backs of the proof of purchases to get that Boba Fett, the mail order one. So it was like, oh, that's the character that was in the cartoon. And that, that was kind of it. But I don't necessarily remember, like, being aware that it was even coming on or whatever, like, knowing who I am. I probably insisted that I be able to watch it, because if we were at my grandmother's house, I would have had to have been like, I'm watching this, and I'm the only one in my whole family that would have watched it. So I knew it was coming, but I don't remember at the same time any of it. I just remember sitting there watching it. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty telling. I'm sure that your mind just buried it out of pure trauma. Zach, you've seen it most recently, so I just want to say, for me, I owned a VHS copy, a bootleg copy that I got way back in the day, late 90s, at a horror convention down in the dealers area, and watched it. I've seen it twice, maybe, but yeah. Never really feel the need to ever watch it again as a whole. B. Arthur is pretty great in it, but other than that, the Boba Fett cartoon is probably the best part of it. I mean, it truly is, and it's what we've all been told, and throughout time, like, that's the only sort of redeeming quality about it, even though a lot of it is not canon anymore, really. Like, just all kinds of little weird things that I kind of took note of, and we'll talk about. So I'm happy that Disney Plus actually just extracted that and put it as its own thing on Disney Plus, because it's the most redeeming quality. Zach, you just watched it.
I put myself through torture watching this show, and I can see why Diallo blocked it out from his memory, because it is god-awful bad. Like, I mean, I tried so hard. Like, even the songs, I'm like, whoa, Jefferson Starship is in this, and Diana Warren, not Diana Warren, but yeah, Diane Warren, I think.
Diane Warren, like she was singing in it or something.
Like the music act, yeah, it had music acts in it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Jefferson Starship was in it. Yeah.
Diane Carroll sounds right. Black actress, right?
Yeah, Diane Carroll. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Starship and Diane Carroll on there with music acts, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be actually pretty cool. Harvey Korman, sign me up. Art Carney, yeah.
What corny?
Then those freaking Wookiees through the whole thing, and I'm like, oh my god. First of all, Lumpy, come on, Lumpy. That's the name that we're going with. That's the name that Lucas decided to. I'm sure he did. I'm sure he didn't have his hands in the pudding, but. Man, it is brutal.
Yeah.
And then you get to the Boba Fett episode, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to put myself through the torture just to make sure, just to solidify the fact that this is pretty trashy TV, and that came to fruition.
And Mark Hamill looks really weird in it too.
Well, he's wearing massive eyeliner,
Yeah.
and he's got a ton of cover
Lots
up
of
on.
makeup on.
Yeah.
Is that
And-
like right after his accident or something? Maybe.
That was he wouldn't have been in the accident yet. I don't
I
think.
think it was before the accident. Yeah, because this was 78. Star Wars came out, what, 76?
77.
So,
Yeah, 77.
77.
And then
So, yeah, this is right
and
after.
then Empire was what, 81. So they were going to go right into filming it soon. So he must have had his accident sometime between 78 and 80, right?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay. I do know that there is a big documentary coming out on the holiday special. I don't think it's sanctioned.
really?
I don't think it's sanctioned by like Lucasfilm or anything, but it's apparently going to be a pretty big one. It's going to be a DVD, like a film documentary, and also a book documentary with it. The podcast that I listen to, Rebel Force Radio, they've talked to the guy who's writing it, and his dad was the guy who produced the show. And yeah, like the guy who created the show and produced it, he was a variety show guy, like Bob Hope and all that kind of stuff. So it feels, the holiday special, and Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, it feels very much of its time. Whereas, which is weird because Star Wars feel like A New Hope feels timeless, whereas this feels so of its time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's that shot on video, minimal sets, the things I loved about Doctor Who that I don't love about this.
Yeah.
It's got it all.
Yeah.
It's got it all.
So yeah,
I was just looking it up real quick. He actually did have his accident in 77, so that might have been why he had all the makeup. I don't know.
wow, the scars must have been. They were like, oh shit. I bet you they were like, shit. It's gonna pop differently on TV. We need to cake some makeup in there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. But
Who knows?
But why the eyeliner?
Why the eyeliner? What's going on?
Come on now.
Come on. It's fingers and nails.
I'll come at you like a tornado of teeth and nails.
Teeth and nails.
I love Will Ferrell's
Where's Colin?
Harry Carey. I love it so much. All right, so since the cartoon is only 9 minutes, I'll just kind of give a really quick synopsis of it. Luke and Leia are on this like awesome rebel base that's like in an asteroid field. They're waiting for Han Solo and Chewie to come back with this artifact that will, do something for the rebellion. They hail Chewie. We see that Han Solo is hanging upside down. Chewie isn't like responding to them because I guess no one besides Han speaks Wookiee in this thing. And so they crash on a planet. Luke goes after them with C-3PO and R2-D2 in his Y-Wing, which I fucking love that he was in a Y-Wing. Mm-hmm. And this planet's like a water planet. They get there, and I like how the water is kind of like bubble gum. I think the planet itself is amazing. It feels very
really cool.
alien. They get there, they're immediately attacked by a creature, then they're saved by Boba Fett, who's riding a creature. He calls them friend a lot, even though R2-D2 thinks that people use that term incorrectly a lot.
Friend.
So they find Chewie. Apparently the artifact has it knocks people out if they get in close proximity to it. So when they get there, Luke gets immediately incapacitated. Then Chewie and Boba Fett have to go to the nearest town to go get the antidote. It's like, Imperial occupied town. They get the antidote, but while they're doing that, Boba Fett sneaks away and contacts Darth Vader that he has Luke and the rebels and everything, and Darth Vader wants him to earn the trust so he can go back with them. When they get back, but of course R2-D2 intercepts that message. When they get back, they revive Luke, they revive Han. Han looks the weirdest out of all the animated characters here, with his eyes squinted shut.
He looked like Brock from Pokemon. I was like, what the hell?
He does. And then R2 tells them, what Boba Fett is planning, and then Boba Fett kind of just makes a hasty retreat, saying, "I'll catch you later, guys." There's no even shootout, and that's it. That's all she wrote. It is 9 minutes long, but I think it's absolutely stunning. I think the animation is beautiful. I love how alien the worlds look. The aliens are interesting in it. We don't see any aliens that we sort of know, so they kind of had to make up aliens, and I think some of them look damn good. Some weird shit in it because they only have A New Hope behind it. Like that's all the canon we sort of have. So we see like alien writing on the screen, but it doesn't look like Aurebesh that we sort of know now. And then there's this weird captain's log voiceover that happens that is so very Star Trek, where they even say like Star Log, and I'm like, ooh, that was weird. And then Boba Fett, obviously his design, he looks similar, but his color palette is very different than what you see in the movies. It's like this weird, very grayish teal, bluish teal, like a very light color, and then yellow and some grays and stuff. From what I understand, they chose that color palette because it would look better on black and white TVs, which were still pretty predominant in 1978. So they chose that so it could sort of pop better. But I mean, overall, I loved it. Oh, and then you see, if you watch The Mandalorian now, the Mandalorian's like disintegrator gun that he used like in the first season or whatever is very much taken from Boba Fett's shock stick that he has at the beginning of this.
That's why it looked familiar to me.
Yeah, exactly. And then one more thing I thought was a little bit weird. I feel like later on in the trilogy, Luke could understand R2 better. Now in Empire, you do see him talking to Luke, and you see Luke reading what he's saying on the X-Wing when they're going to go to Dagobah. But I feel like once he gets to Dagobah, he starts talking to R2. And then even in Return of the Jedi, they just give they don't even do anything with like a translator. And then so much so that in the sequels, Rey could like just talk robot. And now it seems like in the Disney era, some people can just understand robot speak essentially. So it was kind of weird in this where there were huge like translating problems, like no one understood anything R2 was saying, and like he had to be translated like 100%. And then like no one understood what Chewie was saying except for Han Solo. And I was like, okay, all right. So there's like these weird things that like just kind of get, hammered out later on as the franchise grows. But they didn't know at the time. They were just doing, what they were doing. So Diallo, give us your thoughts on this one.
I mean, you said everything.
It's 9 minutes. You literally said everything.
It's a little tricky for me to talk about. It's hard for me to contain my emotions and thoughts sometimes.
Let him out, babe. Let him out.
Yeah, and I'm in this strange space in my life where I've spent most of it loving Star Wars, but after watching Ahsoka, which I actually thought was really good, but I also had this feeling of like, I think I'm over Star Wars. And watching this actually kind of like triggered me.
You're like, I'm done.
Because I was watching it and I was just like, it just took me back to like when Star Wars was just like, we had the one movie and when we all were like obsessed with the possibilities out of that. And then that like, even the special, the whole special, as terrible as it might have been, like it was like the thing that we had to add to the lore. I remember when they popped in on the Muppet Show.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a like event to see those things because it was just so rare, right?
And that Muppet Show episode was the debut of Luke's Bespin outfit because he was filming, because they were both on the same, fucking forgot the name of the set, but Muppets filmed over there in England.
Pinewood, I think it is.
Yeah, Pinewood. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
So he, like, no one had ever even seen that costume before the Muppet Show.
Mm-hmm. So, and then over the years, stuff gets added in and, I don't know, like Star Wars just, to me, it just is like this poorly executed lore, and so I was just watching this and it triggered me. I feel bad to like, I'm not saying Star Wars is terrible at the same time. It really it's really weird because Ahsoka I thought was good, but I also was just like, you know what, like I'm just like I'm done because it's watching, because I think what was triggering me was, I'm so used to things being like declared as canon or not when they appear, And I was like, obviously you can't say a lot of this stuff is canon. And I was just thinking of like, you know, like Luke would have been able to recognize that Boba Fett was like a villain or a Mandalorian, right? Like they would have known who Mandalorian, but you know, none of that had been thought of at the time, right?
Right.
And it just like, and then that, but that's what got me spiraling into like today's Star Wars just being kind of a put together mess. And so, but I thought it was cool.
I mean, dude, I get it. Like, I get it. Because, like, everyone's talking about how good Loki is and everything. And I was the biggest MCU guy and whatnot. And then all of a
Right.
sudden, I fell off this cliff where I
Yeah.
just stopped giving all fucks about MCU. And I just, I just can't do it anymore. And so so even though I don't feel that way about Star Wars, I can understand. Because I also talked to other friends who are like me with Star Wars, and they're like that with the MCU. They're like, I don't care. I'm always going to love it because I grew up reading comic books. And I'm like, I wish I could feel that way. And I do feel that way about Star Wars. But with the MCU, I'm so burned out. So I get it. I can completely understand what you're saying in that regard.
Yeah, and for me, it's not even like we're not even talking about like this is going to become like a venting session for Star Wars for me. But like, it's not even it's funny because it's not even so much the content of Star Wars. Like I can sit and it's like even back in the day, I used to just watch things so solitary. So like I'd watch the movies and then I'd like talk about it with my friends. But there wasn't like I didn't have to really have to hear about other people's opinions about it. And what I'm really finding today is that that's the biggest part of why I'm not enjoying Star Wars anymore. And it's not necessarily like the people that like are the toxic ones that are like, you know, oh, they're upset because like a woman is on it. I mean, it's literally like the hyper fandom where like I'm watching episode 4 of Ahsoka and some guy walks across the screen and then for the next like week they're these people are just telling me about the lore and you needed to watch Rebels and you needed to watch
Are you talking
this
about
and
Rex,
that.
Captain Rex being on the screen for 1 second and everyone,
Yeah, and it's like it's just like there's a painting hanging and on a wall and then they just go into all this lore about stuff and it just started to make me realize that like there's people are more into stuff that didn't actually happen on screen than actually what happens on screen. And it's just like, I don't know, it's just like to this point where I just like, I can't take it. I watched Ahsoka, I thought it was cool, but then it was just like, no, but you don't understand the 3 witches and they went here and I'm like, dude, like that wasn't in the freaking show. Like I don't, you know? Anyway. But Boba Fett cartoon was
So all this goes back to the Boba Fett cartoon.
It actually does though, because like I said, like as I was watching it and it just made me remember when things were just more
Simpler
like
times.
yeah. I was watching it and I was like, it was cool to me. Like I thought it was cool when like Luke was wearing the jacket that he's wearing at the end of A New Hope. And so then my brain started to go like, oh, they were like trying to, you know, they were trying to do the next part, and so that like, and I liked, like you said, I liked when he was flying the Y-wing. It felt like it was also it was interesting because it almost felt like this was a direction Star Wars could have gone in, and they just like they didn't, right? So they did this, they weren't really happy with it or whatever, and then they went another because like, it was very like fantasy. They were like trying to find the amulet or whatever. And C-3PO was like, oh, it can turn you invisible, and like it was like the world could have gone in this lore fantasy vibe, and it just instead it went the other direction, which I'm not going to complain about because I love Empire Strikes Back, but you know what I mean. So it just
Well, and to that point, I actually been watching some Droids episodes lately, and They are a bit more whimsical, and they
Yeah.
do get into some weirder stuff that, even though we all agree, like you said, it's not really canon anymore, it is kind of nice and refreshing to see Star Wars take chances because it doesn't know where it's going, whereas now everything's done by a committee, and everything's done to appease shareholders. But there was a time when this came out where they didn't know which direction it was going to go in, and I feel like they had more fun with things. And so that's also a long way of me saying, guys and gals, if you feel the same way as Diallo, then maybe dive into droids, because droids did some of this stuff, some weird shit. Like, one point R2 gets shrunken down and C3PO has to like put him into like his chest and stuff like that. I'm like, because it was, because shrink ray. And this won't be the only time we talk about a shrink ray this episode. But that's the kind of stuff that they have fun with in the droids episodes. And when I was younger, I didn't really like that kind of stuff, but now that I'm older, I enjoy the whimsy of that.
Yeah. So that's where
That was
yeah.
a very weighted
I didn't even know.
diatribe.
I kind of didn't know it was gonna go that direction. But it was kind of was on my mind when I was watching it. It was like, when they, seeing Boba Fett was cool. Like seeing how the design of him was a little bit different. I noticed he had like a little third eye on his helmet, which like was kind of weird. And they refer to him as Darth Vader's right hand man.
Yeah.
So it's like you could see that they were like, this was a version of a direction that they wanted to go in at a certain point, and then they just didn't. They went in a different direction when it came to actually putting it on screen. But it just made me long for another time, and it made me and it made me a little bit more, because I don't like a lot of the stuff that like Star Wars has done since. I know you guys like the prequels, but I just hit the prequels on. I'm not.
Oh, I don't like the prequels.
I do. I love the prequels.
That's okay. He does.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that's a buffet.
Yeah.
But it's not even so much like the prequels as they exist, but it's sort of like all of these story elements that come in from all over the place, and it's not really coordinated, and then what we end up happening is we have, especially in the Disney era, we have these series that come out that basically serve to fill in plot holes for stuff that somebody else did that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right. And it just breaks my heart.
Zach, what are your thoughts?
Let's see if I can wrap this up in 3 minutes. It was good. I liked it. It's content is content. Like if it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not. And watching it with a 9-year-old, where like his expectations are way different than someone who has put this in their whole life. It's Star Wars is life to some, and to others it's not. And this was fun. It was whimsical and silly, and but also felt like it could have been canon moving forward. But clearly Lucas is not the genius everyone paints him to be, because it's like there's all these moving parts. So I liked it. I thought it was cool. Han's face was odd to me. I was like, yeah, it's Brock from Pokemon. That's where they got that from. But it was cool hearing all the actual actors doing their parts. And the animation is so dreamlike and reminds me of that Spartacus cartoon that I love so much. It's just where it feels like a fever dream. And it's super short. It's 9 minutes. Has nothing to do with Christmas, but it's a part of or nothing to do with the holidays. But in a way, it does, because it's a little present from a 90-minute
shitfest
TV show that is just god awful. So yeah, Disney knows that, because they, like you said, they put that as a standalone episode. I watched the full episode. So in that standalone, did they chop out the parts where little Chaka or Lumpy or whatever the hell his name is? They chop him out of that.
Yeah, it just goes right into it.
Yeah.
The anime. Yeah.
It was just the animated thing, and that was it.
Yeah, because that's jarring when like suddenly you cut back to. I'm like, oh my god, this is terrible. Who thought this was good? Who thought this was good? You know, with his little he's totally a little kid nowadays. That an annoying kid that they put a headset on to shut the hell up so he can play his video game so they can have a quiet meal. I've seen those families at dinner.
Yeah.
Fortunately, my son is not one of those, but I know other parents who have kids like that. So, yeah. That was your Nostradamus moment, that in the future there will be children on little tablets that their parents don't have to deal with. So there you go. Yeah, no, I liked it. Done.
The only thing I'll wrap up and say, I was impressed with, I mean, this is 78 and Empire's not going to come out until 81, but they like get Boba Fett's like sort of speech pattern right in this. And I don't know if that influenced like how he talked in Empire Strikes Back, but I just thought it was interesting that even though it's not the same voice actor as Empire Strikes Back, he sounds like Boba Fett, like the way he talks, sort of that monotone talk and very sort of quick bursts or whatever. I just thought it was interesting that they got that right out of the gate, and then it was like, did they just use that as the template for how he talks in Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, it was really interesting to see. Just like it was, again, it felt like reading comic books a lot. You get like this intro to a character that you knew would be like a big deal a little bit later.
Yeah.
But in some ways, it felt like a workshop. They were like workshopping the character.
See what works here. Yeah.
Yeah, and it felt like, I mean, he had a lot more personality than he ever had in the movies.
Yeah.
And so it's just like you could tell that it seemed like there was an intention behind him that just at some point they just axed it and went in a different direction.
Agreed.
But that was that piece was really interesting to me. Again, because going back, just thinking about how it was a blank slate. Star Wars was a blank slate back then, and it just was interesting to see how they were expressing that lore at the
and
time.
like you said, it's like workshopping. It's like, okay, let's put this star log in, and then I think immediately they're like, nope, that doesn't work. That voiceover thing doesn't work. That's Star Trek. It's 100% Star Trek. And I think you're right. Like I'm sure as much as Lucas hated this and infamously, I'm sure there was like things that he was like, okay, that definitely didn't work, so let's not do that ever again. And this did work, so let's do more of this, essentially. All right.
Empire Strikes Back was 1980. I don't want to.
Oh, okay. Was that? I thought we thought it was 81. Okay.
You got the year wrong.
I feel like somebody out there is gonna hear it and then like, no, they're like right now they're listening and they're like, no, and I wanted to like acknowledge. That
Good job.
You got to cover your bases.
Yeah. So save me from getting an email, strongly worded email.
Yeah.
Zach, are you ready to fight for freedom wherever there's trouble? G.I. Joe's there. Hey, everybody. Co-host Corey here. I just wanted to take a second and say thank you to all of our Patreon members who help support the show. Each month, they get access to The Carpenter Factor, Wrap Up After Dark, and all kinds of other fun exclusive content. You can sign up for our Patreon over at patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. Again, that's patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. Other ways you can help support the show and help us grow is leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We also have a merch store where you can pick up a t-shirt or two, as well as some other fun items. You can find every link to our podcatchers, to our merch store, to Patreon, everything at podcastingafterdark.com. That's podcastingafterdark.com. Now back to the show.
Happy holidays from Wild Weasel, you Christmas turkeys. I sure am. It's G.I. Joe Christmas special. It's a bummer that Transformers never had a Christmas special. They really dropped the bot on that one. You said it, from 1985, season 1. Episode 39, some say 33, depending on which site you go to, the G.I. Joe fandom site, because maybe they don't include the miniseries.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. It was in the first season, and it's awesome. Cobra Claws are coming to town. Cobra Claws are coming to town. The basic synopsis of this episode is that Cobra uses a shrinking weapon so that they can pull like a Trojan horse inside a Joe base to take over the Joe base, steal their equipment, frame Joe's by taking over, what is it, Liberty City? What's the name?
Oh, that was like Keystone City.
Keystone City.
Yeah.
By taking over Keystone City.
I was like, Diallo, isn't that where the Flash is from?
Yeah, the OG Flash. That's why I was still stuck on that.
How dare they? And Marvel owns GI Joe, so at the time, anyways. So there's they were biting off of DC.
The writer, I mean, you'll probably go over it, but one of the writers of it was a longtime comic book writer, I think.
Oh yeah, I believe so. Yes, yeah. The Joes attack Keystone City Cobra has intentions to take over Keystone City with GI Joe equipment to make it look like the Joes did it, to frame the Joes. The Joes obviously thwart this attack by getting the upper hand, getting the molecular reducer enlarger that Destro created, that he gave to Firefly, which Firefly broke. Shame on you, Firefly. And then Destro breaks it again. And in the process of this, the G.I. Joes find their Christmas spirit. Mutt is kind of one of the featured Joes in this, and he's down on the dumps. Christmas isn't the same to him because, his parents were too busy to include him in holiday cheer. They didn't even let me even decorate the Christmas tree. Junkie. He said didn't have too much time. Didn't have time for good old Mutt. It's okay. And Roblox trying to cheer him up by making his turkey dinner. And
hold on, dude. Smack your lips and feast your eyes. Roadblock cooked you a big surprise.
Yes, it is, and of course he calls Baroness a witch when you have a feeling he meant something else.
That witch has a way with the laser ray.
Right.
I wrote them both down.
This episode is filled with, I'll just run down the Joes that are featured in this. Cover Girl, who is a pleasant surprise from Scarlet and Lady J.
Yeah.
I think Lady J came on towards the tail end of the first season and then obviously was predominant throughout the second season. Dusty, and first thing Bodhi noticed, he's like, they're in the middle of winter at a winter base, and Dusty is in his full Desert Storm regalia, and he's like, why is he dressed for the desert when they're in the winter? I'm like, it's the G.I. Joes, Bodhi. What do you expect? He goes, oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
At least they're wearing
Shipwreck.
jackets, at least, because I hate it when a Joe, like someone like Quick Kick, will go out into the snow and have no problems, but at least they put him in the jacket.
Yeah, so, everyone's featured in their winter gear, which as a toy, a G.I. Joe nut, I always was bummed that they didn't sell like that version of them, which I think Super 7 with their $80 toys now are coming out with winter versions of the Joes, which is pretty cool. Anyways, Shipwreck and Polly gets enlarged and saves the day at the end. And it's really that's one of the big parts of this episode is Shipwreck's bird Polly is the one that kind of saves the day for the G.I. Joes by interfering with Cobra Commander
At like Rodan size.
Yes, at Rodan size. Like I said, like we said, Roadblock is in this episode. Mutt at Junkyard and Tripwire, a Blowtorch, and Tripwire and Wild Bill
And Duke.
Tripwire. And of course Duke, yeah. Tripwire is at the base in the episode, but when they go off to attack Cobra, he's suddenly gone from the episode, which is a bummer because I really like Tripwire.
Someone's got to stay and man the defenses, dude.
I guess that's a good point, yeah.
Was he the one that was shooting? He shot the enlarger gun a little bit
He
later?
did the,
That
the
was
molecular reducer
Okay,
enlarger.
yeah.
Let's use the full title when we
Flangy,
refer
the reimbiginator.
yeah. So, and then on the Cobra side, of course, it's Major Blood and Cobra Commander, who has his hood and like his metal mask, and he's also has his hood at one point. He goes casual.
Yeah.
He puts his hood on when they're not attacking. Destro, snake robots, which I always love.
Yep.
And there's a great moment where Duke blasts a snake robot in the face so it explodes in the back. It's amazing.
base.
Firefly, of course, one of my favorite Cobras.
Mine too.
And Zartan and his Dreadnoks. And in this episode, there is holiday cheer. There's references to Jingle Bells Rock is sung throughout by Pauly. It's
You gonna talk?
Cover Girl utters this great line, "What's gotta be's gotta be."
I wrote that
love
one
that
down
line.
too.
And,
I was like, sage advice.
Yeah, I was like, they said that back then. It was-
Yeah.
it's like
And of course, Duke is a ladies' man. CoverGirl makes a move on Duke, and Bodhi's like, "Whoa, that's sus! Isn't he with Scarlet?" And I go, "It was a kiss on the cheek. They're friends." And of course, everybody at the end is happy that Cobra has been defeated. G.I. Joe saved the day, except for Shipwreck because he has this love-hate relationship with his bird. Mutt finds his Christmas cheer at the end because, hey, when you kick Cobra's ass on Christmas Eve, why not have a little bit of cheer in your life? And that's the basic outline of the show. Cobra Claws Are Coming to town. It doesn't get any better than seeing Cobra Commander standing in front of a Merry Christmas sign, basically telling everybody he's going to take over the world.
Yeah.
But what are your guys' thoughts? Diallo, what's your thought on Cobra Claws Are Coming to town?
Cobra Claws are coming to town. You forgot about the part where Shipwreck was riding a big hunk of meat.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. At one
Grinding
point,
on that motherfucker too.
he was. At one point, the Joes obviously, Cobra always gets the upper hand, and they throw the Joes in a meat locker while Zartan impersonates Duke to send out a message to the people at Keystone City that they're, gonna take over, basically.
I was like, maybe that's why he was so sad in the end.
He wanted his meat.
He wanted that meat.
Give me back my meat, you swabby.
On the 12th day of Christmas, my true meat gave to me
Cobra Commander gave to me.
12 pounds of beef. I mean, it's G.I. Joe. It was great. I don't know. Like, it was a little silly. It was. I don't know why this made me like laugh or whatever. But kind of out loud, I was like, Cobra's a bunch of dicks. Like they're attacking on Christmas. Like come on, man.
Right.
But yeah, it was fun. The Embiginator gun was
Molecular reducer enlarger.
was amazing. The naming of it was so on point.
My molecular reducer enlarger.
I do appreciate that Destro said like this took decades of R&D. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, at least it took decades. I appreciate that.
Destro Industries.
I did like so Pauly is annoying. Like, it's actually kind of funny because it's like, weren't they all there when were they all there when Pauly got shrunk or not? I can't quite
Yes,
remember.
they were.
Yeah, and so then Wild Bill was
Yeah.
was like, hey, it looks like there's flies here. And it's like, did you not just see the bird?
Yeah,
even
Wild
makes-
Bill almost killed Pauly.
He even makes a
He's in
comment
the-
like
he's-
Cobra's brought some flies with them.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Like what? But the part that was kind of tripping me out was like, Shipwreck was like, this is the worst thing that ever I never wanted this to happen or ever. Like Pauly got made real big, and I'm like, why is that the worst thing that could ever happen to you? Like, And it made me start thinking, like, what, like, are you doing something to this, something to this bird
No, he's got a small
that
penis.
you're so afraid that it's gonna get vengeance on you? Like, I was
He's got
really,
an inferiority complex.
I'm thinking about that. He was really upset by it.
He
And I
was.
like, why do you? I was like, why do
was.
you care? Like, what do you care?
Right.
Like, Zach, if your dog just like turned into a giant dog all of a sudden, like you,
Clifford.
yeah, you wouldn't be like, oh, you wouldn't be like all sad and upset and grumpy, like, you know what I mean? Like, and it was about him, not about anything else. It was really weird.
I'm trying to remember too if he had Polly when we first were introduced to Shipwreck back in the Weather Dominator miniseries. If he had Polly at that point, or if he was just rolling solo. So my world building is that he had a good friend that had the parrot. That good friend died at the hands of Cobra and told him on his deathbed, please take care of my bird. If it's the last thing you do, never let that bird out of your sight.
That's some Star Wars level headcanon that you have to do to make that work.
With G.I. Joe, you can do that. And G.I. Joe is pretty easy to build any sort of world building because they leave the playing field wide open.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you guys catch? And by the way, I thought it was Scarlet. So yeah, it's CoverGirl for most of it, and then Lady J for another part. But did you see CoverGirl's Leroy Jenkins move where she was just like, grab him, and she just goes running? I was like, oh my god.
Wait, when does Lady J pop up?
Oh, okay. So is it always?
It's always CoverGirl.
Okay, it's always
Yeah,
CoverGirl.
it's always CoverGirl.
So it was her then inside when they finally basically jump on Destro when he's got the gun, and I thought that was Lady J. So I was thrown off by the CoverGirl thing because I don't really have much memory of CoverGirl, but I love how she took a playbook out, or took a play out of the Ray Stantz playbook where she's like, grab him, smother him, just tackle him. And it just reminded me of the beginning of Ghostbusters where Ray's like, I got a plan, grab her, you know? I was
Get her,
like,
Ray.
okay, so CoverGirl, she makes some interesting choices in this episode.
Yeah, she was not featured in a lot of episodes. She was kind of a background character, which was cool to see her get more of a bigger presence in this one.
Yeah, I was actually happy to see her in this one because, yeah, like I said, she hardly ever was in anything. She, like, what did she come with a vehicle or not as a toy?
She did. She came with like some sort of tank type thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's and it was actually really cool to see her in this episode. And then Duke was like, I'm gonna accept this kiss from you even though there's no mistletoe, to using as an excuse when Scarlet breathes down my neck. Why were you kissing on that woman, Duke? And I feel like something might have happened a little bit later. I'm not sure.
I mean, he had the handcuffs or the key to the handcuffs, and
There was a lot of innuendo. I kind of actually felt like it was Scarlet, and then at some point they like changed the cell or something for some reason.
yeah.
Well, the thing
That's
is,
a good-
like, I mean,
yeah.
she's wearing her winter outfit, so it's kind of all the Joes have the same thing. It's kind of like this tunic thing, or just a big jacket. And it's all kind of tannish, and her hair is just like a little bit more orange than Scarlett's is. So, and I just, man, as a kid, I don't remember ever seeing CoverGirl in episodes. It was always Lady J or Scarlett. But now in this episode, Snake Eyes is not in it, or Scarlett, so we can assume that they're on a mission or something. So if that's the case, then Duke is definitely gonna go get his CoverGirl tonight.
Yo, Joe.
And I don't know, who knows what Scarlet and Snake Eyes are doing.
Exactly.
We'll never know because Snake Eyes would never talk.
He never kisses and tells.
He would never.
Yes.
Now, I will,
Corey, what are your thoughts?
yeah, I'll say the second half of it is nothing but action, and it is awesome action. I love it. The conceit of the shrinking ray, can't stand it. Fucking hate that kind of shit. And I'm watching this now, and I'm like, yep, young Corey would have hated this episode because of that. And older Corey, very much bothered by it, but it doesn't like put a nail in the coffin or anything like that. But I'm like, I'm just watching. I'm pulling a Diallo, and I'm just like, so you shrink all of your guys in your gears, like. The implications of this are just massive. Whereas nowadays, you would just have like a drone or something. Or even back then, they could have just had a robotic. All they had to do was turn the power grid off. Like, that's all they're trying to do. So I get the idea of Trojan horsing, something to come in and do that. But they already have, like, we've already established robotics. But now we have to buy the Cobra can shrink and then reinvigorate things. I'm just like, and then you can make them even bigger, so that way you could then just make an army of giants. And I know that we saw something like this in the G.I. Joe comic book that we reviewed last year, where the bats got big and like giant, but that was because they were using Aladdin's lamp that they found, which weirdly I can buy that. It's the fact that they used the Honey I Shrunk the Kids device. It's just, man, but that's only like 10 minutes of this, or maybe even 5 minutes of like this 22-minute episode. But I'm like, again, the implications are massive. All the things that they could do with this. But of course, the device breaks, so they can't use it again,
Well, it would have been cool if they made some reference to, capturing Dr. Pym and using his Pym particles to make this molecular reducer enlarger. But they didn't.
And if you have that, why didn't they just shrink the Joes instead of putting them into the it's just, it's
because I'm a commander, not a genius.
Yeah, I mean, and I get it, guys and gals. I get it, So ultimately, I think it's a super fun episode. I actually think I like it more than I probably would have when I was younger because of that. But since I got past that, the second half of it, it's like almost 12 minutes of just pure action in the second half, which is awesome. And it's really good action too. And it's one of those episodes where the animation is a bit better. It's one of the better animated episodes. I love that. And the only thing I have to say is, because I've also been watching a lot of, because I got the Chow Factory DVD box set of the Sunbow G.I. Joe stuff. And boy, oh boy, did I forget about the opening with the giant flying Cobra City thing, because all I remember seeing
the mothership,
mothership thing, all I remember seeing in syndication is the G.I. Joe the movie intro, where after that movie came out, I feel like they tacked that intro on to all the syndicated shows, because that's all I saw. I feel like at some point that was the only intro I ever saw, was the Statue of Liberty one.
You won't see that on the Sunbow DVDs. It's that intro. There's like 3 separate intros, because the last one they did at the tail end of the series was with Sergeant Slaughter. Getting off and battling Serpentor basically. But then the first one is the first I don't know, 20 some odd episodes. It's a different intro, and then but the in between, it's the one with Lady J and Flint and all those guys. So they got to feature all those characters, and the intros are always so great. And this episode is, it's textbook. It follows the Joe playbook to a T, and it kind of gets crapped on a lot because people are like, oh, it's, like you said, it's so silly, but it's nostalgic fun. Like, it's 80s Christmas episode. Any show like this that has a Christmas episode, I just love, because it's so absurd, and it's got a big hunk of meat in it. So what do you want?
And dude, like you, Firefly is one of my favorite Cobra characters.
So cool.
And one of my favorite G.I. Joe characters. And I love seeing him and Wild Weasel do their jobs at the beginning when they get the toys like in there and everything. They do their jobs. It's refreshing to see Cobra people like not fuck up.
And that ray you're talking about, that gun will be a similar one is used in Worlds Without End, the 2-parter that I always talk about. So
that one traumatized me as a kid. That one and the one where Shipwreck is in that town and everyone melts and turns into the stuff. Those 2 episodes are when I learned that cartoons could actually freak me out as a kid.
Yeah, we might have to do a G.I. Joe specific episode of like most traumatic episodes, because Worlds Without End is that 2-parter is gold, and that the one with Shipwreck's great too, and the one where Dusty becomes a traitor is pretty good also.
Yeah. No, it's awesome shit.
Anyways.
But yeah, no, I mean, I love G.I. Joe too, and it definitely had the Christmas feels, which I like. And I hadn't seen this episode probably since I was a kid, so like seeing Cobra Commander standing in front of the Merry Christmas, I was like, everyone posts that on Instagram, like all the 80s, pages post that image on Christmas Day and everything like that. I'm like, oh, that's where it's this episode. That's where it's from. Yeah.
Merry Christmas, you turkeys.
Hey everybody, Corey here. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Hey everybody, I'm Tim.
And I'm Dean.
And we're the hosts of Talking Back. We're a retro-based podcast covering movies, comics, video games, and more.
Check us out every Monday where we hit the rewind button and dig into some of our favorite content from the past. We like to keep things fun, lighthearted, and informative.
Do you feel like you need more nostalgia in your life? Then check out Talking Back. We're available everywhere podcasts are found.
Have you been wondering where's the beef? Well, on our podcast, Throwback Trivia Takedown, you might just find that out, as well as some other things about the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
We're a nostalgic-based trivia show that pits two challengers head-to-head in a duel of the decades, with categories ranging from movies, TV and music, to slang, food, and fashion. You're sure to get the best in retro-themed trivia.
So strap on your jelly shoes, grab a Surge, and walk like an Egyptian to your favorite podcast app and check out Throwback Trivia Takedown.
I heard even Mikey likes it.
And now, back to the show. Well, G.I. Joe down. Guys, we knew this was going to be a pretty quick episode, especially since my show was 9 minutes long.
Well, I was gonna say to go from a sad sack like Mutt complaining that he never got to trim the Christmas tree to a bitter, angry man, understandably because his adamantium's throughout his body, with Wolverine. That's a nice little segue.
Wolverine is the Mutt, or Mutt is the Wolverine of I get it. But Diallo, you want to take us into probably the most Christmassy of all three of these shows, because I feel like the X-Men one, even though the G.I. Joe had a lot more action to it than the X-Men one did, I feel like there wasn't the point wasn't quite there as much as in the X-Men one. The Christmas spirit is definitely there with this one. So Diallo, take us into Have Yourself a Morlock Little Christmas.
Yeah, I'm not going to belabor the point because there's no way I'm going to win the argument, but it's like this episode and the Christmas, the G.I. Joe episode are sort of like why for years I would say that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. Because this sort of typifies what Christmas is in this actual story, whereas that just happens to take place at Christmas.
Right.
But I don't engage in that conversation anymore. People are very passionate about it, and I'll let them have their fun. But anyway, yes. So the X-Men, this is absolutely not obscure.
Yeah.
At all. I was just like, you know what? Like, I really love X-Men. So, wanted to do this Christmas episode. So the name of this episode is Have Yourself a Morlock Little Christmas. Xmas. Because there's a war on Christmas, I guess, so you can't say it.
Even back in 1995.
Yeah, I remember like in the 70s, people having that conversation. So anyway. Little fun fact: Larry Houston was the director of this episode, and he was on my panel last year at LA Comic-Con.
I remember that.
Cool. Yeah, it was really cool. It's aired December 23rd, 1995. Actually, I kind of feel like this might be why the whole numbering thing is happening, because they might have like aired it at a certain point out of order.
Oh yeah, okay.
To hit Christmas, and maybe that's why it's coming in like weird.
I mean, that's a sweet spot. If they landed this episode on the 23rd, that's awesome.
Right. So, but like it might have been like the 12th episode
Yeah.
in the season.
Yeah.
And they just, but it was actually
They shuffled things
order
around.
17. Yeah. I was really wondering about this because like on Disney Plus, it's episode 17 and everywhere else it was like 12.
Yeah.
So, the story is about, we kind of open up in Xavier's mansion and everyone's getting ready for Christmas. Gambit is trying to make some delicious food using spices, and Jean Grey is
Being a white bitch.
I didn't want to go
No,
really
she's
in there,
being-
and
no.
I'm like, yeah.
She's being such a fucking white person. She's
Dude,
like
he-
you can't put that spicy garbage in my food. And I'm watching this now, and I'm like, oh my god. And then she's like cooking with broccoli. And he's trying to. I was just like, dude, I know. I saw it. And I was like, fucking white people, man,
He was just trying to put some spices in
into their lives, you know.
and she wasn't having it.
No.
She was like, it's probably the origins of the Dark Phoenix.
It came from this. Came from
saga,
Gambit.
She was like, we're not having that. Oh man. Anyways, they're decorating the tree. Cyclops can't sing. He's like singing out of tune. And Jubilee, Wolverine's running around all grumpy, and
'Cause he's
Jubilee,
Wolverine.
Jubilee decides, hey, let's go shopping. Maybe that'll cheer you up. Retail therapy or something.
Because she knows Logan so well.
Yeah, but it's actually funny because it's like Jubilee's origins actually, like, she debuted in a mall. She was like a mall like orphan or something like that. So I mean, it kind of made sense. But anyways, when they get there and things turn dark and mysterious, there's an ambulance crash, and then we see these Morlock characters, and the X-Men try to stop them. A fight breaks out, and eventually we find out that there's a new mutant named Leech, or a new mutant, I'm sorry, a Morlock named Leech that is sick. So the X-Men end up going there. Storm is actually the leader of the Morlocks, and she's been absentee, mother
I
to them.
totally forgot about that storyline with Storm being the leader of the Morlocks.
Yeah, I will never forget it. Actually. There's this whole back and forth about that. She isn't really, like, these Morlocks are like kind of suffering without a leader. And then they want she wants Wolverine to use his healing factor blood to try to help heal Leech. And then there's a whole rigmarole about getting Hank Beast to come in and be a doctor and all kinds of stuff. Anyways, it kind of works out in the end. And then Storm ends up passing the baton, so to speak, to Callisto, who was the original leader of the Morlocks and the founder of them also. I actually have written down the story in the form of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," if you guys want to hear it.
Yeah, go for it, buddy. You took the time. Do it, man.
It might run a little long.
That's all right. That's okay. Go for it.
'Twas Christmas with the X-Men, a festive affair, decking the halls with Rogue, Jubilee, and Scott with flair. Scott tried to sing, a terrible sound. Jubilee sought Logan, jingle bells to expound. In the kitchen, Remy and Jean had their spat. Cajun spices clashed with Jean's culinary chat. In his lab, Hank brewed a Yuletide brew, while Xavier and Aurora watched the joyous crew. A blast, a disturbance, a cranberry glaze mess. X-Men rushed to the scene in Christmas distress. Logan arrived, finding it all a false alarm. Disturbed by good cheer, he sought a calm. Jubilee convinced him to shop with delight. In the stores, she beamed. Logan just wanted the night. Ice skating at Rockefeller, joy and despair. Sirens wailed, something was in the air. An ambulance skated, almost crashing the ice. Aurora's powers moved it away, a hero's device. Morlocks emerged, Ape and Annalie distressed. Leech was sick, his powers a chaotic mess. Jubilee with presents grabbed them with glee. To the Morlock's tunnels the X-Men would be. Callisto, the Watcher, not happy at all, yet united they'd be to answer the call. A broken ornament adorned the Morlock tree. Storm commanded, Logan resisted. It couldn't be. Jubilee found Mariana, a small girl in need, comforting each other, a true Christmas deed. Aurora refused to believe Leech was lost. Logan questioned if his powers could defrost. Sometimes you start just trying to find words that rhyme. Berated for neglect, Morlocks in pain. A transfusion attempted, hope not in vain. Back at the mansion, argument still held. Rogue flew Hank, the Morlocks compelled. Despite the ordeal, Leech remained frail, the scepter of power a leader's tale. Callisto took command, Aurora stepped back, an invitation extended, a dinner track. Jubilee gave presents, a gesture so grand, autonomy for Morlocks, a gift unplanned. Remy and Jean, unhappy with the fate, yet Xavier praised Jubilee, making spirits elevate. A Christmas tale with mutants, a story profound, in the spirit of giving, joy and love abound.
Hey, good one, buddy.
Merry Christmas. This made me feel so much better than my Star Wars rant.
Nice job. Nice job. Well played.
Zach, go for it, buddy.
I mean, everything Diallo said is my sentiments exactly. I will say, don't let anyone spray you in the face with cologne. If they do, you have every right to punch them back. And I did not grow up reading X-Men and was not super familiar. And I didn't watch this show in the 90s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It wasn't my thing back then.
It was too popular.
I think so. I think a little bit of it was like, I was like, I don't know. I was really into, we talked about this, Punisher more at the time, Daredevil more at the time. And so I was like, it just wasn't my thing at the time. So I'm glad I actually watched this last year with Bodie. We were looking for Christmas cartoon episodes. That's why when the pre-planning of this episode, I was like, have we done this one before? Because I remember watching it with him then, and he didn't like it that much then, but then we watched it now and we liked it much more now because he's older. He gets it. He gets more the theme. And every time I see Beast, I can't not think of Kelsey Grammer. I'm just like, oh God, I don't want that to be Kelsey Grammer. But no, it was so much fun. It's a great episode, and right down to the Charlie Brown Christmas tree at the end.
Yeah,
which is very perfect.
Yeah,
I liked it. I really, really enjoyed it. It put me in the Christmas spirit.
Yeah.
How about you, Corey?
Yeah, I thought this one was the most Christmassy of all three of them. Like, just distilling things down to, like, the true spirit. But I did watch this show, and I did read X-Men at this time, and I read them, up to this time frame. Like, I read them X-Men from the 80s and the 90s. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, man, this is my favorite era of X-Men. Every character, I love them. I love the cartoon. I was like, oh my God, the Morlocks. I fucking forgot about the Morlocks. And then on top of it, I forgot that Storm was like the leader of the Morlocks. I was like, oh my God, all this shit. Now, it's not a very action-y episode, but I don't think it needs to be, and I think that's okay. And I think this is... I think the message would have been diluted a little bit if there was too much action in this episode. But a few things that I sort of noted, and I sent them pictures to you guys, but I'll just say it again here. Aurora's like outfit before they go shopping, she is wearing, all right, guys and gals, it's like a tight-fitting one-piece dress thing, but it's peach colored with teal tiger stripes all down the side of it. It is wild. And then Jubilee Diallo, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know I'm not because I looked up the pictures.
No, you're absolutely right.
So why is Jubilee wearing Boom Boom's costume when they go out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember. Was Boom Boom on the cartoon or no? I don't remember.
I don't think she was, because at this
I don't
point,
think
wasn't
she
she
was,
on
yeah.
like she was like in New Mutants and stuff by this point?
Yeah, Boom Boom was she started out in X Factor, I think, and then jumped over. Like, because I don't think she was in the cartoon, I think literally that's what they did.
Yeah.
Like
They're like, we don't have to design it. It's right here. She doesn't exist in the cartoon anyways. Nowadays, we would call that an Easter egg. And nowadays, they would have said, Jubilee would have been like, hey, I found this in Boo Boom's closet. But back then, they're just like, no one's going to notice. And then we all, Diallo, you and I become Leonardo DiCaprio from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And we're like, right there,
so I think, like, because they all had to wear like regular clothes. It was Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Like it was winter, so if she went in her normal outfit, which she's wearing shorts, and it just would have looked a little different, a little weird.
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. But I'm just like, I was sitting there watching, and I blinked, and I'm like, that's Boom Boom? And I love Boom Boom, because you and I always talk about it that we both love like Dazzler and Boom Boom, like the the characters from back then. But yeah, I thought it was fun. I thought it was really cool. I think like rewatchability, I would probably watch the G.I. Joe one more just because it has more action in it. But this one, I think, really sells the meaning of Christmas. And, Jubilee learns the meaning of Christmas. Frickin' Logan kind of learns the meaning of Christmas. And I like the whole thing with him and Leech, and he doesn't want to give the kid a transfusion. And, of course, everyone's like, oh, you're a dick. And he's like, I'm not a dick. Like, I've done this, like, 20 times and it's only worked twice. Like I liked his fear, and and at some point he's like, what do you like, he doesn't say it this way, but it's almost like he's like, do you think I'm a fucking monster? Like, I don't want anything to happen to Leech, like, but I just also don't want to kill him either with my blood. And I used to read Savage Dragon, and early on in Savage Dragon he had to give somebody a transfusion, and they kind of turned green and got the thing, like the fin, and then they were just sitting in the car with him and they exploded. So I was having flashbacks of that. I was waiting for Leech to just explode right there, But it was a sweet episode. And when I was younger, this is probably another one that I probably would not have liked. I can't tell you for sure, but I probably didn't pay but half attention to it. Now, I love it. I love, there's so much Christmas music in this one. Like, the G.I. Joe one didn't have as much Christmas music. This one had a lot more Christmas music. They're, like, in New York, Rockefeller Center. It's snowing. I just loved all that shit. And then, even though, like, not a lot happens with the Morlocks, I was still, like, having all the nostalgia feels for the Morlocks and Callisto. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I forgot about Callisto, and, and shit like that. And also Aurora's, her second outfit, like her jacket thing, man, she's got some style to her.
It was so, like, 'cause I haven't watched this cartoon since it went off the air.
Yeah, me too. This is probably the first time I've seen it since.
Yeah, and I've been meaning to go back, especially when they announced X-Men 97 coming. But watching this, it just like it took me back again. I'm going to another rant. I'm sorry, guys. I appreciate the X-Men movies for what they were, for the most part, until the very last few of them just kind of like I think completely lost their way. But I felt like they were good enough for the time, especially when comic book movies weren't like a sure bet yet, and they were a version of the X-Men that felt like it was like at least they kind of looked cool on TV.
Yeah.
But like watching the cartoon, like this cartoon is to me is like the best representation of the X-Men outside of the comic books. Like it just like it's able to encapsulate like all the characters, the storylines. Because that's one of the things that the movies especially tend to do is they get so stuck on just like one or two storylines, and it's like so Wolverine heavy that they skip over the myriad of characters that the X-Men universe has, and storylines that the X-Men have had, like the Morlocks, who we've never seen in the movies at all, right? And it's always ends up being the Phoenix Saga, like every time, right?
It's kind of like how DC can't not do Flashpoint because that's like all we have. Yeah,
and they just do it over and over and over again. But there's so many stories that the X-Men have had, and they've done so many. They remember when they were like in the Outback, and
that was when I was reading the comics. Yes.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Gateway.
Gateway. Yeah.
And we're like when they the leading up to that, when they like stepped into the Siege Perilous. It was like, was it the
and that's when Psylocke came out, and the Asian Psylocke, whereas before she wasn't, and that's when they mixed it all up because they stepped into that thing. Yeah, that was when I got into X-Men. That was when I was first reading. That was like 87, 88,
yeah, it's like
somewhere
late
around
80s,
there.
Yeah. And then they were, and like they had with the whole
and the Reavers.
I think it was the Reavers. They had like the Fall of the Mutants. I think that's where with the Morlocks and Mr. Sinister.
Yep.
Like they had all this stuff, and that was all in the cartoon. Like and they just and I was watching just this one episode. I was like, oh man, they did it so well. They did it so well.
And Zach, I know you showed Bodhi, but I mean, this episode is heavy. Like they deal with some like heavy shit, like like obviously PTSD with Logan, and I mean the shit that's going on with Storm and stuff. Like it's a heavy episode. Did that add anything for Bodhi when he's watching it now?
No, I mean I honestly, this cartoon's definitely geared towards an older audience because it's not the subject matter. I think that not like, I think in general, most kids want to see more action and more, versus like deep story. Cause this definitely digs into a more dramatic, storyline, which is great. And like you guys said, it follows the comic books really well. And the execution is really good, but I think it definitely is made for an older audience. I would say at least 10 years old in general.
Yeah.
Cause I think most kids would be like, a lot of this would be over their heads,
Yeah. X-Men definitely was like a teenager, more of a teenager kind of thing.
And this had a teenager vibe to it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Which is all good. It's cool.
Just simply seeing Rogue fly up to, and I was actually having a conversation the other day about Rogue, because I think actually it was Jamie and Glatzka actually we were talking about before we were recording, but it was just like she had never read the comic books and she never watched the cartoons, so she'd only seen the movies, and I was just talking about how cool Rogue was, and she's never been given that treatment on screen, and watch it, like you were just talking about Storm, just how like this version of Storm it was such a good representation. She was so regal and majestic and like exotic and beautiful, but powerful and strong, and like she embodies all those things. And I don't think that they ever, I like Halle Berry like to a degree, but like she just, I always felt like she was miscast.
Yeah.
It should have been Angela Bassett.
I always thought it should have been Angela Bassett.
Even when I watched Black Panther 2, I was like, she still could play Storm.
Yeah, she's still Storm. She's still Storm.
It really like got me into my X-Men feels. I was just like, man, this cartoon is such a good representation. But I can also see like talking like about like with Zach and Bodhi watching it, like especially if you, because this is much later in the show. This is like season 4.
Yeah.
And so if you don't like really know the characters or anything, I can kind of see how the what they're going through might not pop as much because you're a little lost, right? Like you don't know where you're sitting with, like, who are these people underground? Who are these people?
And if they're mutants, why don't they just live at the school,
Yeah. So there was a little classism on Storm's part because she was just like, because it basically was that. It was like she's like, Christmas is special when you're with your family. It doesn't matter if you're in the mansion.
Well, I thought they were gonna bring them back to the mansion to have the giant feast, but no, they just have it in the sewers, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
Sorry, we can't come home.
We're not gonna dirty up our mansion for you all, but we will grace you with our presence.
And for everyone wondering what's inside of all the gifts that they bought, apparently food, because they're like, there's food inside these. I'm like, oh, cool. Must be
man.
like summer sausage and cheese rolls and stuff like that.
Or one of those popcorn tin things or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, I love that stuff. I love that.
Well, final thoughts on all these, Zach, and of course, give the Bodhi rating or his thoughts on all three of these. But yeah, just give us your final thoughts.
Yeah, I was, overall, it's nice to see three totally different episodes that have, no connection whatsoever. But one being totally not Christmas related, one having holiday cheer in it, and the other one being more Christmas centric. It was a lot of fun. It's also from three separate decades, which was cool. We always seem to do that, but not like coincidentally.
Yeah.
It just works out that way. And I think, Bodhi preferred the G.I. Joe one. That's his favorite because he's grown up with G.I. Joe. He loves G.I. Joe. He loved that Boba Fett one. He thought the animation was really cool.
Yeah.
And the X-Men one he liked. It was just, I think a lot of it was over his head, especially with storyline. And we've never really delved into X-Men because that's the other thing too about the X-Men movies per se. If you're going to you can show a Marvel movie from, the past 10, 15 years, but those X-Men movies are way more mature than a lot of the Marvel movies are, like Ant-Man, for example, which is super kid-friendly. But the X-Men movies are just a little bit more intense and darker, and I'd rather just show him the cartoon if I'm going to show him anything, if he wants to watch something versus read about it in a comic book. That's my thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, I think I kind of had the same thing happen with my nephew when I showed him the Transformers movie a couple years ago when we first started having our, him spend the night and we show him movies and stuff and everything. And I just, it's like, hey, let's watch Transformers the movie, yeah. He's just like, like no point of comparison. So also no idea who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, what the setup is. And I was like, I kind of just threw you into the deep end with no training whatsoever. So I get it. If this is like Bodhi's first attempt at watching X-Men, it's like, okay. Yeah. It's probably a bit to chew on,
It's a lot to chew.
Yeah. Diallo, what are your final thoughts on all three of these?
Yeah, I mean, I loved all of them. I can't even really rank them. I like them. All three of these things were dear to my heart at different points in my life, and I couldn't be like, in this case, I couldn't really be like, oh, this one's better than that one and that one. I like them all.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you, buddy. I mean, all three of these were near and dear to my heart at some point in my life. So it is nice to kind of go through all of them. I think at this point, because I've seen more G.I. Joe stuff recently because of the box set that I have and everything, I was a bit more, I guess, shocked by the X-Men stuff. So it was a bit more engaging for me because I was like, oh my God, Morlocks, oh my God, Callisto, oh my God. Like all these things were kind of flooding back. Whereas G.I. Joe, I'm still I've always been in that world, essentially. But this did kind of make me want to go back and watch the X-Men cartoon because it does remind me that this is my favorite era of X-Men and everything. And it's not just because of this cartoon. It's just the storylines of this era. This was my X-Men era, and they just happened to translate it well into a cartoon. I still think ultimately, I like G.I. Joe as a cartoon better, maybe at this point. I say maybe because I'd have to rewatch, X-Men to sort of give that fully, dive into that fully. But yeah, I think all three of them are cool. But I will give the edge to the X-Men one. I think it was the most Christmassy. It got the idea across of what was important about Christmas. And I think I really appreciated that. And I don't think I would have appreciated that when I was younger. I think I probably would have been like, and I'm sure I did think this, oh, there's no action really in that episode. Whereas now I'm like, good job, guys. Good job just getting the spirit of Christmas, across with, all these Morlocks and everything. And for, hiding, giving us a little Easter egg of Boom Boom's costume in there.
Yeah, X-Men cartoon was one of the first cartoons that was like, story arc focused.
Yeah.
And it like after you really get into it, like you really get into it.
Yeah,
And
because you have to watch. It's I mean, one of the first cartoons where it had arcs. It had season finales and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and character things that happened to a character would translate over, and you could not watch that cartoon in syndication. Like you had to watch it in order.
Yeah, actually, and it's making me think like the morph character in the first episode. I think that might be a little too heavy for a kid to watch. Actually, so.
Yeah, X-Men aren't
Yeah.
for kids, man. That's the cool thing. But G.I. Joe is, and is Galactica actually for kids? No, probably not. I was
Absolutely
trying to
not.
make a segue, but are you guys covering any Christmas episodes on Galactica? Actually, any Battlestar Galactica Christmas episodes?
It's sort of. We just actually finished season 2, so Lay Down Your Burdens Part 2. So it's the start of the new Caprica arc on Battlestar Galactica, which kind of Christmassy because it's all cold and snowy on the new Caprica. So that was
the because I watched those with you. That was when they were like the web series or something in between the seasons or whatever.
Yeah, the webisodes were kind of like in between season 2 and 3, and then season 3 starts kind of the actual storyline.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Galactica. Actually, it's kind of crazy. We're in season. We're going to be doing the webisodes, and then we're going to do season 3, and we're like, I don't know. We're like halfway done. Kind of crazy on our way to Earth.
Awesome.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
And Zach, do you have any Christmas stuff going on at $2 late fee and Territory Marks this month?
We do. Over at $2 late fee, we're covering Rocky IV, a wintry plethora of music and montage and snow.
There's no easy way out.
And that'll coincide with our interview with Vince DiCola and Kenny Merriweather. Vince DiCola is back on the show, but he's going to be doing some live performances with his guitarist Kenny, and recreating maybe some of the songs that you might have heard in the Rocky soundtrack or Transformers perhaps. But that'll be the follow-up interview. And then Territory Marks this month. Well, we hot off the heels of Dustin and I going to see the premiere of The Iron Claw, the Von Erich film, which drops in December. Paul and I are dedicating the whole month to the Von Erichs, and we have a very special interview coming up at the tail end of December. I don't want to talk about it just yet, but if you go to our Instagram, and if you sign up to Patreon, you'll find out way ahead of time. But we have a really fun interview potentially locked in. Actually, it is locked in. It's locked into the end of the month. That coincides with 80s wrestling.
Nice.
So a lot of fun stuff going on in Territory Marks.
Nice.
And $2 late fee.
That's awesome. And Zach and I have, of course.
Oh, I have one more thing. We interviewed Jill Sholin to talk about Babes in Toyland, the 1980s holiday film starring Drew Barrymore, Jill Sholin, and Keanu Reeves. She has some funny stories about that. That's a little bonus episode that's going to be on this month as well.
Nice.
We're busy over at $2 late fee.
Yeah, always, and we're busy at Podcasting After Dark as well because we
Hells
have our
yeah.
we have our Christmas movies coming up. We actually haven't even recorded our last movie review of November because we're recording this so early. But we have full month of Christmas episodes. We got this, so yeah. So the holidays are in full swing. Zach and I are wrapping up The Carpenter Factor, though. So swing on over to Patreon, patreon.com/podcasting after dark, to check out The Carpenter Factor and also to vote on who you want to see us do next. Or cover next on our A Tour de Force tier. We have a poll between two people. We are going to consider, or one of the two will be either Don Coscarelli or, Zach?
Stuart Gordon.
That's right. So we're either going to cover Don Coscarelli or Stuart Gordon.
Stuart Gordon
next season. Just because I know we've talked about considering Wes Craven and we're going to do him, but we just came off of a 2+ year John Carpenter dive, and Wes Craven's will be probably just as long, and we wanted to do something a little bit shorter in between. So,
and I don't feel like covering Music from the Heart with Meryl Streep. I really don't. I mean, no offense to anybody who likes that movie. It's all good. It's like doing Mr. Holland's Opus on Podcasting After Dark. Come on, guys.
I mean, we'll get to Wes Craven eventually.
Mr. Holland's Opus is like one of my all-time favorite movies.
Tell you what, Diallo, if anyone comes ever, you can sign up to the $20 tier on Patreon, and you can select Mr. Holland's Opus for us to break down scene by scene. If someone wants us, and we will definitely do that. Included with Music from the Heart.
Can we do Krippendorf's Tribe?
No.
I actually
Mr. Holland's Opus is great.
I love that. I love that movie so much. There's a little part of it that now when I watch it, it's a little problematic. It doesn't quite hold up to today's standards of, But for the most part, it's a great movie. I forgot. I just started my other podcast, yet another movie review you didn't ask for.
Oh.
So I wanted to drop that in. By the time this comes out, I will have done. I'm going to go see Marvels tomorrow, so
Okay.
I'll have a review up for that. And I'm getting through Loki, so I have a review for that. And maybe I should do a Christmas movie.
Yes.
Maybe you should give me a movie to watch, to review.
Isn't there a Christmas movie coming out soon?
There was one I just saw.
Oh, what about
today with
John Woo's new movie, Silent Night?
Silent
that's
Night.
right.
John Woo.
It's airing at the Arrow tonight, actually, and I had no idea until my friends were like, "Hey, we're here."
I'm excited for that
Joel,
one.
Joel Kinnaman was there.
Yeah. Maybe I'll do
Doesn't
that one.
Femme
I don't know when
French
it
love
comes
him?
out.
I will be able to watch Silent Night possibly in the theater because my wife has a huge crush on Joel Kinnaman.
Huge
So
lady
there you go.
boner for him.
Lady boner.
I mean, that too.
Yeah, dude. So I want to see that movie so bad. I'm excited for
Yeah.
that one. Maybe we'll get a chance to see it when I come out and visit. That'd be fucking fun.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
If all of us saw it together. Jesus,
Hire a babysitter.
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. We hope everybody enjoyed this episode of TV Obscura. And, go check out all the shows. Go check out $2 Late Fee and Galactica Actually and all the other stuff. I'll have links to Diallo's new podcast and everything in there, as well as Galactica Actually in the show notes. But we hope you guys enjoyed these holiday-themed episodes. I personally like doing them, even though my show wasn't quite holiday-ish. I almost...
but you got to talk about Star Wars for 45 minutes, so
I was like,
you're welcome. There's
like-
your Christmas gift.
I was like, maybe I should change this. As I'm watching it, maybe I should change this. And I'm like, fuck it. Who cares? It's 9 minutes long. All right, guys and gals, thank you all so much. We love you all. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. And as always...
Catch you on the obscure side. Ho, ho, ho.
You wild turkeys. Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.
I'm John, and I'm the host of Action Action. Every week, I'm joined by James.
Heyo.
And Dustin.
Hello.
And each week, we review, debate, and rank a different action movie.
We're creating the ultimate list of action movies.
From awful to awesome.
So if you want to hear 3 more white guys with beards talk about action movies,
And argue about where they belong on our list,
and decide you hate us because we made fun of your favorite movie.
Join us every Tuesday, and you can find us on your favorite podcatcher.
And Steven Seagal is a joke.